I am Mike Stafford. I am one of the 2 youth ministers here at St. Mary's. This is?
I'm Riley Hagan, and I'm the other youth minister here.
And today we are going to just spend a little bit of time talking in somewhat greater detail about our trip to Kenya, to the Nambali Magnet School in Kenya. You heard some of our teenagers reflecting at the 8 o'clock and the 9 o'clock about it during the homily time, reflecting about their experiences there, their experiences of joy and community and how they've been transformed. It's hard, though, in a short period of time like that to really get into some of the kind of the images and the experiences, like the day-to-day kind of experiences we had. So that's what this is for. We got pictures galore, and there'll be time at the end for some questions, although if you have something excited, really excited and burning that you want to ask, by all means, raise your hand and ask it. Just to show you where we were going, so this is a map of Kenya. Kenya is in East Africa. We flew into Nairobi. The school itself is where this little heart is, on the western side of the country, close to the Uganda border. It's in a very rural, very poor part of the country. It's not the poorest part of Kenya. The poorest part is actually the northern part up near Ethiopia and Sudan, South Sudan. But it is a very, very poor part of the country. Agriculture, as far as the eye can see, it is relatively close to Lake Victoria, so that they have fish and they have a lot of corn, fields and fields and fields and fields of corn in that particular part of the country. But that's where the Nambali Magnet School was. When we went on safari, we went to the southern part right here, which is the Great Masai Mara National Park, which is an extension of the Tanzanian Serengeti. So the Serengeti goes up like this, and then it peaks into Kenya as well. So geographically, that's where we were. So we're just going to do a quick overview of the trip. We had a team of 17 people. It's 14 of us were from St. Mary's, Riley and me, plus 12 St. Mary's youth. But what, in an extraordinary blessing of blessings, we were able to partner with Christ Church Los Altos. Liesel, it was right here. Liesel, make yourself known. Liesel's right there. Liesel was a third adult who was on the trip. We also had 2 youth from Christ Church Los Altos, and just the chance to be able to share and participate in an experience like that with another parish adds new vision, adds new perspective, adds new energy. It was just a really spectacular thing, and we are so, so grateful for this, to be able to have partnered with them, as well as to be able to continue partnering with them in our love and support of the school. Nice looking group, right? Yeah. Nice. It's a nice crew. Oh, something else to note. It's a high school trip. Every mission trip is a high school trip. So our youngest were folks who had graduated from 8th grade. So had just officially graduated from 8th grade and were moving into high school. And then we had folks who went actually all the way into college. We don't normally take college students with us on these trips, but we had originally planned to go to Kenya in 2020, and that didn't happen, right? So we had to postpone it. And so some of those very lovely, wonderful, thoughtful, devoted youth groupers who would have had the chance to go with us in 2020, we wanted to kind of extend that to them as well, to have this chance to go to have this amazing experience. And they were also had this incredible blessing on the trip as well. Added a dimension of maturity that we don't always have. So great to have this incredible crew.
So St. Mary's has the connection to the Nambali Magnet School through our former associate, Claire, who is now at Christ Church Los Altos. But it's not the easiest place to get to, especially from San Francisco. So we flew to Los Angeles, and then from Los Angeles we got on a flight to London Heathrow, and that was us in London Heathrow, where then we picked up John, who had been traveling in Europe, And then we flew from Heathrow to Nairobi, where we picked up the Hanson twins, who had been in Kenya with their family. And then we did our final flight, which luckily was the shortest one, from Nairobi to Kisumu. And then once we landed in Kisumu, we took about a 2.5-hour van ride from Kisumu to the Nambali Magnet School. One of the things we learned is that in Kenya, if they tell you that it's about a 2-hour drive, it's probably at least a 3-hour drive. The roads are not great, but that was really our first experience of actually seeing the countryside, because before that we had just been on the airplane. And so we got to travel through the county of Busia to get to the Nambali Magnet School and start to see the local landscape and the people. And so when we arrived at the school, we were greeted by the swarms of joyful children. And then we quickly made our home here at Caribou House. We had actually been some of the first visitors to Caribou House when they built it 7 years ago. I think we were the second group that ever stayed there. Caribou means welcome, and they built the house to welcome visitors to the school. And so getting to return 7 years later, we actually helped paint 7 years ago. We painted some of it, we painted the green and the black. And so we returned 7 years later and we got to stay there. This year, because there was a larger group, we couldn't all fit in Caribou House. It holds about 8 people. So the school, in the meantime, had done a lot of building since we had been there last, and they built an annex that also had 8 to 10 additional places to house people. So we were 2 to a room. Mosquito nets, very important for health. And then the Caribou House has a kitchen and a dining area, and so that was really our communal area and our center where we had our meals. We would wake up in the morning, we'd have breakfast together, then we would do some service in the morning, then we broke for tea, because in Kenya they have morning tea and afternoon tea. And then we did more service, and then we would have lunch, and then we did a little more service, we had some downtime, and then we played more with the kids. And then we would have dinner and join the kids for their evening worship at the kids at the school, and then we had our evening reflection. This is some of our youth at Caribou House with their headbands that they're wearing that they purchased from the sewing center at the school. The sewing center is another form of service that the school has, both to take care of the uniforms and the clothes that the kids wear, but also to make clothing that they sell, like the skirts that a lot of us are wearing today.
Riley's modeling one, Gloria's modeling one,
Marie.
Maurice's modeling one, Sia's modeling one.
And it's also another way to employ members of the community. And everybody that we met was incredibly welcoming, especially the members of the sewing center. They were so excited to see us. They stayed late to finish Thorn wanted shorts the last day we were there, and they stayed a couple of hours late to finish them, just so that we could get them before we left. And we also got to enjoy some Kenyan cuisine, like Charlotte is eating mandazi, which are kind of like beignets but without powdered sugar. They're excellent. They're a big tea time snack. Another big tea time snack was samosas. We also had a lot of rice, a lot of lentils, fish, this Kenyan dish called chapati, which is kind of like naan. And then also this other Kenyan dish called ugali, which is like a corn, kind of like a polenta. And it's their staple dish that they use to like basically to spoon all of the food that they have.
So one of the primary things that we were there for was to do different kinds of service. On our second day, so first day we're like trying to figure out what planet we're on because of time zone changes and whatnot. So second day we were actually able to begin our service. One of the things that a couple of our folks did was they worked on a farm. The Nambali Magnet School has a fully functional farm as part of their property. They've got animals, they've got crops. That's for both to feed the school, but also for sale as fundraisers. Other people from the community know they can get food from the Nambali Magnet School. They pay, that allows the school to have extra funds to be able to pay for teachers, for school materials, for building upkeep, all that stuff. So beautiful little piglets. The folks doing the service didn't actually work with the pigs. They actually harvested eggs. Henry, you were one of those, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
How many eggs did you collect?
I collected 1,000 eggs in a day.
So just lots and lots and lots and lots. It was you and Walter, right? Yeah, so just tons and tons and tons of eggs. 1,000 eggs in a day. right? So they had chickens, they had cows, they had rabbits, they had pigs.
They had bees.
And they had bees, yeah, not on campus, the bees
Yeah.
were set a little ways back.
Do they eat the eggs as eggs, or do they use them to make their ugali, or did they sell the eggs?
All of the above.
Okay.
So we actually, Riley mentioned that we made breakfast for ourselves every day. Otherwise, all the food was supplied for us. Most of the dinner and tea and lunch, the kitchens would make food and then bring it to us, or we would go fetch the food because it was about 20 yards away. But breakfast was eggs. We had eggs and eggs and eggs. We had boiled eggs, we had fried eggs, we had scrambled eggs, we had toast, we had coffee and tea, we had, but it was fresh eggs. I mean,
Props to Mike for making good eggs.
I was the short order cook.
And we had medium fast.
And we had, yes, and margarine galore.
And we use the honey from the bees on the mandasi.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Honey.
Yeah. So some of us worked on the farm. There's another shot of some of the plants that were growing in a greenhouse on the property. Another time, we had a few of us working in the kitchen. This is a picture of Liesel working in the kitchen. I know that Gloria and Riley worked in the kitchen one day, and it's like chopping food. You're chopping vegetables, you're going through tomatoes, you're going through like whatever is needed for the students that day. The kitchens were right there. You can see that they've got plenty of places to cook and prepare food all the way around, huge vats so that they could prepare tea, they could prepare ugali, they could prepare food for the students and the staff at the school. The school, we're going to get a little bit more into this later, but the school serves a little over 400 students, pre-K through 8th grade, plus all the staff, and everybody is fed. There are about 2/3 of the student body are boarding, so they get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and tea, and all the food that they need. And so the kitchens have their work cut out for them. They show up real early to start getting things going for the day, and then they stay pretty late cleaning up after everybody. Is this you?
Yes.
This is you.
So because we were at a school, the bulk of our service was done in the classrooms. Because learning is the heart of the mission of the school. And so when we would enter in the classrooms, the students have this routine where they would stand up and they had this cheer kind of where they welcomed you. And at the school, because they're really trying to instill this idea of excellence in the students, so they would stand up and they would say like, Good morning, visitors of excellence. And they always refer to their teachers as professors of excellence, and the students were referred to as learners of excellence. And so this is Anne, Hi, and Charlotte helping teach an English class. I think all of us at some point were in at least one classroom. The teachers were incredibly welcoming to allow us to teach their lessons, sometimes without really much preparation at all. And so Anne, Hi, and Charlotte were teaching parts of speech, and then they taught the kids about American Mad Libs. So they played Mad Libs with them. Then Mike, Lisa, and I taught 8th grade math and English, and Sia and Gloria sat in. So this is, these are both 8th grade classes. They crammed in, and this is them doing their review on a Sunday. The students at the school are in class a lot more than American students. They're in class on Saturdays, they're in class on Sundays. And so we were helping them out. They had just taken some of their big national exams, so they were doing some review from that. We also helped them out. They calculate their own report cards, which is something I think we should bring to America. The students do that. And then we also helped out with some of the youngest. The school starts at age 3. And so this is Catherine and Matthew and Marie with the babies. And they're just so adorable. When we were in Kenya, it is their winter. So they were bundled up for the cold weather that was about 75, 80 degrees. We were very, very warm the whole time, but it is their winter. It's their coolest part of the year. The school is almost right on the equator, so the winter and summer are not that different.
Something you might notice also in the pictures is that the students have very close cropped hair. And sometimes it's hard to tell boys and girls, so it's all done by uniform. Girls are wearing either dresses, or you'll see them in yellow. So yellow, anybody wearing yellow is a girl, anybody wearing red is a boy. Just a FYI.
This is more pictures of us with some of the teachers. It was really interesting to experience the difference between like the U.S. education system and the Kenyan education system. The U.S. schools, we have like many more materials, so much more technology, but the kids in these classrooms were so engaged. I think they know that they've been given this incredible opportunity that so many other children in the community don't have, and they're just hungry to learn in a way that you just don't see in the same way from American students. We were asking the kids to show us their seats. They told us the very best place to sit is always in the front because you can see better, you can hear better. They were raising their hands, they were reviewing, so really just this thirst for knowledge.
The bulk of our service was working in the classrooms with the kids. We did have a day where we went to various parts of campus and worked in the library and worked on the farm and worked in the kitchens and housekeeping and things like that. But they really wanted us to be with the students in the classrooms. So in the morning, when the students were in class, we would kind of go to the babies, the early elementary, late elementary, middle school, like we would just kind of, there were 17 of us, so we were able to fan out all over the place and be present in the classrooms. But another essential part of our service was actually play, was to play with the kids. Because you guys all know how much kids experience life through play. And the connections that we make play, it's just a wonderful and joyful way to do that. So we were out playing volleyball with the kids every single day. But not just volleyball. There were times when we would be dancing and singing with them. We would be out on the playground with them. Henry took up chessboards. We actually donated. We as a parish donated about 4 or 5 nice wooden chessboards so that they could be practicing and learning chess. And Henry sat down with a bunch of the kids and a bunch of the teachers and would play chess with them, and then the game would end and they'd start all over again. We had evenings where we would have, it was referenced a couple times in the homily, for those of you who are going to the 11 o'clock, you'll hear all about it, where there were dances at night, every Saturday night. They would blast music and everybody would be dancing, and so we would be dancing and partying with the students. Charlotte and a bunch of the other older girls, we'd get a bunch of the little kids together, mainly little girls, but boys would be involved as well. You'll see me in the background as well. Playing a game called Little Sally Walker. As you're going around in the circle, you know, and it's like skipping and dancing and interacting, and then they would do it for like hours, non-stop. And these kids had this endless energy because they loved us, they loved the game, they loved us and the game together. It was really
magnificent.
magnificent.
We kind of take some shifts with old stuff.
No, serious. I did it for about an hour and had to give up. So. And again, you'll see in these pictures just the connections that our kids are making with the students. The fact that we are with them, they want to be with us, they wanted their picture taken with us, we wanted them to have their picture taken with us. It was just a lot of mutual love and joy in the play that we had. There's Matthew and me and Walter choreographed dance together on the dance floor at one of the Saturday parties. Just a lot of joy. This was done actually, the dancing was done in the school cafeteria. So they would clear out, after dinner, they would clear out all the chairs and tables. They would have their evening worship every day, but then on Saturday, after their evening worship, they loaded up the speakers and started the dancing.
They now have, since we went there last, they've now purchased 2 buses for the school so they can take students places, which they did not have before.
Nate was one of our great friends from Christchurch, Los Altos. He was constantly pushing little kids on whatever this is, the swing that goes back and forth. It's just nonstop. He was just there all the time with just delighting in it. Amy, also from Christchurch, Los Altos, was a human jungle gym for the small ones. They would just climb on her, and she's a gymnast. So she could do flips and walk on her hands and things like that, and just, it blew their minds. There's Kate and Liesel.
So we had, on the Saturday that we were there, we had an opportunity to visit the town of Nambale, which is about like a 10-15 minute walk from the school. And Saturday is market day. Nambale is the market town for the local area. So even though it's by our standards, like a very small town, it's like a couple blocks, the market is the big draw. And so we were escorted in through the market by some teachers from the school. As you imagine, we definitely really stood out. So lots of people wanted to meet us. They were incredibly welcoming. They wanted to meet us. They wanted to have their picture taken. They were also very concerned that we were cold because it was winter and they thought we should buy jackets. And it was at least 85 degrees. We were dying, and they were very worried that we were so cold. But it was our chance really to interact with the local community that we didn't see at the school as much. And they sold a variety of things. They sold foodstuffs at the market. They sold, so there's John at the market. They sold like houseware, a lot of like plastic tubs and things. They sold livestock, so cows, goats, pigs, all of that at the market here. And we also visited the local supermarket. There were, I think, 2 very small local supermarkets. It kind of would be like the equivalent of maybe our corner store. We got some snacks and some candy.
That's Catherine at the market.
Yeah, it's Catherine and Hyde at the market getting some local goods. Matthew walking back from the market.
On Sunday, we were invited to worship with the student community, the boarding student community. It is a nominally Christian school and founded by a Kenyan Anglican priest. But they don't do Anglican worship because she wanted to make it as inclusive, kind of Christian inclusive as possible. But they do Sunday worship, so they get on their nicest uniforms. They have this is in the same cafeteria that we were just partying at the night before. This is and they started at 8 o'clock in the morning. As an incredible honor and blessing, they actually invited me to preach, which was very moving, and not the sermon necessarily, but the honor. Students would get up and they would sing a song as a group, or they would recite memorized scripture as part of their worship. There was a time when other adults would lead them in prayers. They would sometimes literally hit their knees on the ground and lean on their benches with their hands clasped and their foreheads on their hands, and they'd all be saying their own individual prayers to God. It was very different from an Episcopal experience, and also obviously palpably full of spirit and faith and hope, which is just, that's what we aspire for in our worship. Lots and lots and lots of singing.
And dancing.
There was dancing, yeah.
And dancing at one point.
Yeah, but they just sing their little hearts out, which is also one of the most moving things to experience, is the voices of, almost 300 small children all singing God's praises at the top of their lungs. A pretty spectacular thing. This is a picture of me preaching. Again, a real honor and a joy to be able to have done that. It's going on my resume.
Students were taking notes while Mike was
Oh,
preaching.
yeah.
One
That's
kid
a first.
had a notebook that was titled Sunday Service with an American. And he wrote down things that Mike said.
So we were there for 10 days total. On day 8, we had been the whole school for days had been preparing for Sports Day. Sports Day is the last day of their term. They invite family and members of the community to the school. It's a giant field day. There are tents, there are races, there is food, there's constantly people coming and going. There are teams. They divided the entire student body into 4 teams, each team represented by a different animal. So there was Team Leopard, and Team Jaguar, and Team Tiger, and Team Cheetah. Right? So those are our fierce animals. Every team made a grand triumphal entry onto the field. There were soccer games. They had kids against kids. They had parents against teachers, which was also fun. And they were so competitive. Oh my gosh.
You got
It was-
injured?
Yeah, so competitive. Here are some of our youth who are getting prepared for Team Leopard. Face painting, posters, music, songs. There's John and Thorn for Team Jaguar. This is part of their triumphal entry onto the field with drums and chanting and singing, and they're making a huge, blowing horns, making a huge hullabaloo, because that was also something you were being scored on. Was as the greater the hullabaloo, the greater the score. Someone was doing backflips, not one of us.
Maybe it's a
There were races. We were actually encouraged to participate as much as we wanted to. This is Henry about to race against some other teachers and parents. Henry was representing the teacher and staff side. You won, didn't you? No, he didn't. Okay. And you can see the school in the background. In the top right corner are some of the dormitories. In the middle is the cafeteria and administrative building, and on the far left are going to be some of the kind of the support buildings, storage, kitchens, things like that.
And where we were staying is like right
Behind all of that, by where those trees are back there. Here's some more folks with the face paints with the kids. I'm guessing from the spots they're either Leopard or Cheetah.
Yeah.
Oh, do they say Cheetah? They do on the name. Everybody's given one. I was one of the judges. That was fun. Volleyball players. We had a parents versus Nambali Magnet School game of volleyball. So this was the Nambali Magnet School team. I think you guys lost in 5 sets.
And we won.
Oh, did you?
I did not win.
I don't think you guys- We've got
Sunday lost.
They win some, they lost some. But again, community building, a lot of fun. It was also heartbreaking because parents were there to have sports day, and they were there to pick up their kids and take them home for the end of term break. So here we were having so much fun and energy, and then all of a sudden, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it dawned on all of us that everybody had to leave. And all of these deep connections that we had made with the kids, like, it was tragic. It felt like there was such a pall that had kind of fell over the campus, and suddenly got very, very quiet. And we realized later on that evening what life, this campus is a campus, right? It's buildings. But the life of the school is the students. And they bring that life and that hope and that joy and that love to the place. And it was so eerily weird having everybody gone. We were the only ones left. It was sad. It was legit sad.
So one of the neat things about having this continued relationship with the school is that this is an unusual opportunity for us to return to a service site. Mike and I have done many of these trips, these service trips, and we never really get to go back to the same spot. But we had visited Nambali in 2016. We were supposed to return in 2020, but that didn't happen. So this was our postponed trip. And so getting to return, we saw some of the same kids. Some of the kids that were now in 8th grade had been in 1st grade when we were there. And they didn't really remember us, but we had pictures of them. So this is a little girl named Amoy, and here she is now in 8th grade. We showed them, we had pictures that we showed them, and they got so excited to see their pictures of their little kid, of them as little kids. Some of them got really embarrassed because they're in middle school, but they were very excited. And then the ones that we didn't have pictures of were disappointed. This is a little girl named Precious. And now Precious is in 8th grade. So our hope is that we can go back again in the future and see some of the kids that are little now when they are older.
Once the kids left once the students left the school for their break, we still had 2 days left in Nambali. So the president and founder of the school, the director of the school, Evelyn Wakusama, arranged a couple of day trips for us. One was to the Kakamega Forest, where we got to go for a lovely, pleasant, easy hike through a rainforest. There were monkeys, there were birds, There were also safari ants that crawled up our legs and bit us. I think
They're not
Gloria was one of
poisonous.
the first to discover that. They were incredibly unpleasant. But we also learned quickly that the forest is theirs and not ours. We learned quickly to tuck our pants into our socks so that they couldn't get into our legs. And we even had two boys who decided that they were going to go through the entire rest of the hike doing this. Because they did that. It was a way to avoid the ants. It was a beautiful trip. We got to go into the rainforest and then climbed a hill above the rainforest. There were some very daring people who went into a cave that had bats. I was not one of those people. It was a really, really neat and beautiful, beautiful place, and a really incredible experience.
And the rainforest used to cover like most of Kenya.
Most of
Or most
Western
of
Kenya.
Western Kenya, but before colonization, and now this is the part that's preserved.
Most of the forests had been raised by the British for tea plantations. But this is the part that was preserved. On our last day, we were able to go to a small fishing village in right on Lake Victoria. We actually went to a small resort in that village where we were able to sit and relax by beautiful lapping waters. It was also Sia's birthday that day, wasn't it? So Sia turned 18 that day. That was exciting. So what a wonderful way to wrap up our time in Nambale.
We ate fish, right?
Like fresh fish, yeah. This is a picture of me and Riley and Evelyn Wakusama. So Reverend Evelyn Wakusama is the Kenyan Anglican priest who founded the school, grew up in Nambale, and it's her vision that brought about this incredible school and its incredible life and joy and hope.
So then after 10 days at the school, our time at the school sadly came to an end. And then we began the final part of our journey. We began about a 7-ish, somewhere 7 to 8 hour journey from Nambale down through Kenya to Masai Mara. And so we got to see the vast diversity of the Kenyan landscape, going from more the tropical area, driving past the tea plantations, and then driving into the Masai Mara, which really does look like it's straight out of the Lion King. If you drive in and the animals are there. It's nothing like going to a zoo. It is, you see the animals like in their actual natural habitat. And we also kind of commented on the fact that this is what, like most Westerners, when they go visit Kenya, this is what they experience. So we saw lions. Lions are just like big, huge cats. They mostly sleep. They don't seem very interested in you at all. We got very close we got on the border with Kenya and Tanzania. We actually crossed the border, which we weren't supposed to do, but nobody's up there, so it was fine.
By like 20 feet.
Yeah. Henry is standing in 2 countries at once. We saw elephants. We saw a lot of baby elephants. They play in the mud to keep themselves cool. It's adorable. We stayed at this very, very, very nice safari camp. We're still not exactly sure how that happened. We were supposed to stay at like a safari camp that was fine, and then somehow the safari company upgraded us to this like very, very, very nice resort. We saw all like the big game cheetah, right? Cheetah. We also saw. So this is the safari cars that you ride in. We had 3 different safari cars. They let you do things that they wouldn't let you do in America, like stand on the seats while you're driving, so you can see so you can just see everything. And they go like off road as you go through. More elephants. Leopard.
That's a leopard. Now leopards are very, very rare to see in the middle of the day. They're usually hanging out in trees. As we were leaving, one just kind of sauntered in front of our vehicles. I mean, it wanted to say goodbye to us, I guess. It was pretty spectacular.
So we saw there's like the big 5 animals. We saw 4 of the big 5. The 5th is the rhinoceros, and I think there's only 20 rhinoceros in the entire Masai Mara. So the rhinoceros are incredibly rare. So we weren't surprised that we didn't see the rhino. So hyenas, lots and lots and lots of giraffes, which are crazy animals. Really bizarre animals, but really neat. More pictures of us, safari vehicles. This was one of the vehicles. We had 3 wonderful guides. We worked with a company called Odyssey Safaris. They were the only company when we tried 7 years ago that would actually work with us in terms of getting us to Nambale, which is not part of their normal thing. And so they were able to do that with us again. We saw warthogs, zebras, as the Kenyans call them. When we had been there 7 years ago, we were there during wildebeest migration. And even though we were there at the exact same time, the wildebeest are, I guess, kind of flexible. So the wildebeest we thought we would see the wildebeest, but the wildebeest were still in Tanzania, so they hadn't quite gotten there yet. And because of that, it really changed the landscape, because when the wildebeest migrate through, they trample all the grass. And so that means that like more zebras come out and stuff, but this time we saw like more lions because they like to hide in the taller grass, so it really changed kind of what we saw. So we were able to really see the animals, the beauty of God's creation, but we also really reflected on this incredible gift that we had to experience such a fuller vision of Kenya. We know that when, the majority of Westerners, when they do visit Kenya, or even when they think of visiting Sub-Saharan Africa, this is what they think about. They just think about the safari and seeing the animals. And while we loved our time on safari, I think all of us would probably agree that it really paled in comparison to the incredible experience that we had at the school. So we just felt so grateful to have this much fuller experience. Shortly after we returned, I was talking to a friend of a friend who's visiting Kenya, and they're just doing a safari, and she was asking all about doing the safari, and it made me feel so frustrated because I wanted to say, you're gonna miss so much. If that's all you do is go and do the safari, you're gonna miss the best part. And then after the safari, we traveled home. We drove all day we were driven all day from the Masai Mara through the Great Rift Valley up to the Nairobi airport. From the Nairobi airport, we took a red-eye to Paris. In Paris, we said goodbye to Sia, because Sia stayed in Europe. We also ran through the Paris airport because we were booking it because our flight to Paris was late, so we almost missed the connection. I got into a slight altercation with the Air France lady that wasn't going to let us on the plane, or she was only going to let half of us on the plane. So we got her to let all of us on the plane, and then once we got on the plane, we still sat on the plane for like 20 more minutes before they even moved. But then we flew to LA. We made it safely to LA. Our luggage did not, so our luggage joined us the next day. And then we did the final flight back to San Francisco, where we arrived on the afternoon of July 4th. Very, very, very exhausted. I went to bed at 6:30 that night. I didn't hear a single firework. I didn't hear anything out. And then our luggage showed up the next day. So we returned very exhausted, but transformed.
Okay, well that's not working. So, let's try that. Let's do it. I'm gonna try that. Nope. Okay. So you're gonna look at it this way. The Nambale Magnet School is there to serve the children of Western Kenya. It was founded around 2009 by Abulawaku Sama, you see in the middle, an Anglican priest, one of the first female Anglican priests in Kenya, who grew up in that area. She went to seminary at Yale Divinity School, and while she was at Yale, her whole vision of ministry shifted to being called, a very clear call to return to Western Kenya to serve her own community in this particular way. So she started getting supporters to buy land and build buildings. She started recruiting teachers and very small students, 3 and 4 years old, who became the very first kids who then, bit by bit, grew up. And every time they advance a year, they would add more staff, they'd add more students, and it built up and built up and built up. And it's one of the most highly regarded elementary schools in all of Kenya, much less Western Kenya. And one of the interesting things is that they are actually raising the bar of education throughout the entire area, because other schools want to compete. They want to be as highly regarded. They actually invite teachers from other schools and administrators into their school to welcome them, to show them how they do things, to show them how they do education, to show them how they take care. But here's the essential, the most essential thing, is that education in Kenya is not free. And it is, it's hard to educate people to this level. And a lot of families especially in the worst kinds of poverty, cannot afford to send their kids to any school at all because they still need uniforms, they still need books, they still need transportation, they still need all this stuff. The Namale Magnet School is committed to serving the most, the poorest of the poor, what's the word they use?
The vulnerable.
The most vulnerable, thank you. The most vulnerable students in their society. Kids who have been orphaned. Kids who are living in such desperate poverty that it is ostensibly a death sentence for them. And so what they do is a full third, every single student basically at the school is on some kind of financial support. A full third of the school is the most vulnerable kids. And in fact, even if you're moderately vulnerable, you're not considered part of that third, right? They want the kids and literally to save their life. And they board them, and they feed them, and they give them this educational opportunity that otherwise they would not have. And they've been able to maintain that since their original inception because of the support of parishes and individuals from the United States and from other places as well. Evelyn, in her brilliance, maintained lots of connections from her days at Yale, and connections with other Protestant and Catholic, other Christian congregations and individuals who she brought into the fundraising efforts and brought into the community. And so it's such an important thing for us to be able to support the school and the community. Definitely by us showing up in our service, that was great. The connections we made with the kids, that was wonderful. But our goal, and I'm going to just skip real fast to this, is our goal is to have a continued support of individuals of St. Mary's, but also St. Mary's as a parish, to continue our support of the school, to be able to, as we do fundraisers for outreach, we keep in mind and donate to the Namale Magnet School. As people are planning their giving, their annual giving in whatever way, they give some to St. Mary's, and maybe they also give the Namale Magnet School, because what we do for ourselves and what we do for our community is absolutely essential, and also keeping in mind the needs of the world, keeping in mind the needs of the poor, keeping in mind the needs of people who are not necessarily right here, but who could really benefit from the abundance that God has blessed us with, is an essential part of being followers of Jesus. And so something that we will continue to work on moving forward is how we might do exactly that. Now, unfortunately, we are really close to the 11 o'clock service, and we have 3 youth who are going to be preaching at said service. So we are going to have to duck out, especially Maureen and Sia and Henry. Why don't you guys make your way down to church? Do you want to go with them? Do you want to linger here for a second? Riley's going to linger here to. I know. I'll be there in 30 seconds. Riley's going to stay here. If you don't need to duck out right now, Riley's going to stick here for an extra 5 minutes to field the questions, to have a little bit more conversation, and I'm going to go be with the.
For all of us, so thank you so much. And thank you again to Riley and Mike, who, I know y'all didn't see it, but I saw some of the work behind the scenes that it just takes to get everyone there and back safely, which is our main goal. And we're fearless leaders and did a wonderful job, so thank you again for